What exactly is a high limit charter? What happens if teams that earn one don't return next year? How much is a charter worth? A year after they were announced, we'll try and answer those questions and a lot more today. Let's go. It's Tuesday, December 3rd. I'm Justin Fiedler. This is DIRTRACKR Daily presented by Kubota Genuine Parts. Today's show is being supported by our friends at Knoxville Raceway. Starting this week, 4-day ticket packages are on sale for the granddaddy of them all, the 64th NOS Energy Drink Knoxville Nationals presented by Casey's. Go to knoxvilleraceway.com to order online or call the ticket office at 641-842-5431. Get in early and secure your spot for 4 nights in Knoxville, Iowa, August 6th through the 9th at the sprint car capital of the world. The best drivers, the biggest car count with big money up for grabs, including $195,000 to the winner, $15,000 just to start the championship A main, and a $100,000 bonus if the winner is using Kaiser wheels and hubs. This event has had 7 consecutive sellouts, so don't wait. Order your tickets now at knoxvilleraceway.com. It was almost exactly 1 year ago, actually 51 weeks to be really specific, that I did a daily show where we went deep on the high limit plan to create a charter system for its full-time teams. Now, basically a full year later, I wanted to jump back in and see where we stand with charters, what exactly we know about them, and kind of reset the whole thing. Kyle Larson had some charter comments just yesterday while being interviewed for ePartrade's Race Industry Week. And going back to the end of October, Jeremy Elliott talked charters with Brad Sweet on an edition of his Sprint Car Unlimited Deep Dive. The charter conversation was one that remained a subtopic for High Limit all season as we tracked who would be, one of the first 5 teams to earn one. And pretty regularly, I had questions about what exactly charters were, how it was all going to work, who was getting them, who's not, what happens if they get them, all these things. As I said last year, think of charters like a franchise agreement in other sports. It guarantees your position in the league or series, likely some amount of revenue, and it's something of value that can be bought or sold in the future. The system used in NASCAR for their 36 teams is the closest approximation we have right now of what High Limit is working towards. Interestingly, though, the NASCAR charter system currently under fire from Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan's 2311 and Bob Jenkins in Front Row Motorsports for antitrust allegations, but we'll leave that specific conversation for other forums. With High Limit, though, this ownership setup was a big selling point in drawing teams into their fledgling national series before 2024, and it's one of the main differentiating features between them and the World of Outlaws. High Limit's quote-unquote vision is something we've heard a number of drivers talk about over the last year when it's, come to, when they talked about why they joined up with the series and why they want to stick around for the future. The hope of High Limit is that the system will create a more sustainable and potentially profitable model for sprint car team owners into the future. As a reset, High Limit's plan was to award 5 charters after 2024, and based on owner points, the teams that earned those initial 5 are the KKR 49, Rico Abreu 24, the Clausen Marshall 7BC, the Roth 83, and Brent Marks 19. For 2025, an additional 5 charters are going to be awarded, and the initial documentation for how that happens reads like this. At the conclusion of the 2025 season, the next 5 best, highest finishing full-time members must participate in all of the 2024 and 2025 High Limit Racing Series races based upon average car owner year-end points finished during the 2024 and 2025 seasons that were not already granted a high-stakes charter shall be granted said high-stakes charter at the conclusion of the 2025 season. So after those 5 we just mentioned, the next best 5 teams from the combined first 2 seasons will get those next charters. The specific point was reiterated by Brad Sweet during that Jeremy Elliott interview back in October. The entire system then will be implemented for the 2026 season, and the original wording said, quote, with the initial grant of 10 high-stakes charters, the high-stakes charter system shall commence, with the high-stakes charter teams being rewarded 50% of the streaming monies. The new system will operate by providing the teams with monthly fixed fee payments, which shall be weighted based upon factors that may include average finishing positions over the initial 2-year period, championships, and race wins. The result will be an elimination of tow money and the year-end point fund. However, in no event shall charter teams collectively receive, easy for me to say, less than 50% of the streaming revenue. And a point of clarification here, the word streaming here really means any media rights fees. So that's kind of the high-level plan for the system. 10 initial charters, 50% of streaming or media rights revenue starts in 2026. What's important to emphasize here, though, is that as questions have come in this season, understand that those of us keeping track of this don't have answers to many of them, and it's because High Limit doesn't have answers yet. And Sweet said as much back in October, and Larson just yesterday said the same thing. He admitted to Brad Gilly they are still working through how all of it will come together and said hopefully they will have some info available soon. And that aligns with what I've heard from the team side, that there hasn't been any new or recent communication between the series and the teams about the setup. To be fair, they do still have another year before the system is supposed to go into effect, so still time to work through the details. As we look at the 5 teams that earned a charter for 2024, though, Brent Mark's future on tour is in question right now on December 3rd, as is that of the Roth 83. We know James McFadden won't be back, and there's no indication that the 83 will remain a full-time national touring team. So what happens if one or both decide not to return? Well, based on Brad's comments to Jeremy, those teams won't get the charters. Sweet said those cars must run in 2025 to keep it. He also said then that he knew that some teams who had earned charters or were very close to earning them would likely drop out, and that they will have to figure out how to handle that internally. Meaning, what is the process for charter succession if Marks or Roth don't return? The 2 likely scenarios, I think, being that the next in line would get them, or that they would just award 2 more charters after 2025. If it's next in line, that could mean the Myers 14 and the Boot 13 would then have a shot at one. Jumping back to the revenue split. That initial language talked about 50% of streaming revenue, but it's clear from Brad's comments that the final revenue split, how it's going to work with point fund and all of those things, all of that's still being worked out. He said he wants it to be an amount of money that eventually gets close to covering the operating expenses of the team and potentially into profitability. And based on the numbers we've run here on the show in the past, that has to mean at least $500,000 per year per team, and likely closer to $1 million a year per team for the top cars. That would be a significant increase over the $250,000 High Limit Champions payout and what was likely around $30,000 in tow money for 2024. Brad Sweet not saying, again, that that's going to happen in 2026. Obviously, he's hoping for that way down the road, multiple years down the road. To get there, though, those rights fees would have to go up dramatically, and it doesn't feel realistic right now to think that that could all come from a split with Flow Racing. The Jeremy conversation with Brad included a mention of selling TV packages, and we know that there have been conversations about attempting to bring High Limit to television. We heard rumors specifically of FS1. We talked about the whole dirt racing on TV situation way back in April on a daily show. There are significant challenges there, as well as even a series like the NHRA isn't in a position where they can share revenue from media rights with their teams. A piece in Auto Week at the end of 2023 pointed towards hopes that the NHRA could get the money flowing their direction after that massive $7.7 billion NASCAR media rights deal, but nothing is obviously certain. And we know that World Racing Group buys time on CBS for their World of Outlaws and other dirt racing TV shows. It will be a serious mountain to climb for High Limit to convince a cable channel or streaming platform to buy their media rights, and for that to be large enough amount of money that they can then pay a sizable portion of it to the teams. At the moment, the value of the charter is just basically the combination of point fund and tow money. That's been a major question. What are these things worth? And if somebody was going to sell them, usually selling business assets is some sort of multiple on that revenue. Going back to last year, I said that this isn't more or new money. It's just a different way to pay the teams the same dollars when you think about point fund and tow money here. And that won't change until High Limit starts bringing in larger fees for media rights. And beyond the initial 10 charters, the original documentation laid out provides for an additional 4 charters that could be awarded at the series' discretion. I can't really see that happening anytime soon, especially given the current economics of the sport. I think the first 10, that's a good start. And then any teams beyond that who want to join will do so as basically unchartered. Brad did talk to Jeremy about the difficulty, or one of the difficulties of the system being how do they encourage teams without charters to still participate. He doesn't want that to be a limiting factor, and he had told me last year that a traditional point fund and tow money setup would likely be available for those other teams. So there you go, over 1,500 words on where we stand right now with High Limit charters. Honestly, if you go back to the show from last December, you'll see that not a lot has really changed here, and the questions we had then are still basically the questions we have now. This is all new ground for dirt racing, and these are kind of hard problems to work through for Brad and Kyle and JP and all of the High Limit people. It's not shocking that nearly 365 days later, there's just really been little progress, at least publicly. I'm sure they've made progress behind the scenes. I think, too, regardless of if we had more clarity from the series on how all of this would work and verbiage, if they did a big explainer, I think some of these questions still won't be answered until many years down the road. Closing out today, we did have some sprint car ride news from Monday. In central Pennsylvania, Freddie Rahmer has parted ways with car owner Rich Eichelberger. Mr. Elliott, SprintCarUnlimited.com, there with the breaking news. Rahmer will return to his family-owned 51 for 2025, running a very similar schedule around Posse Country. Freddie told Jeremy that nothing bad happened and that it's just what he felt was best for him to make this move at this time. On the flip side, Eichelberger was apparently surprised by the move, and his team is now in limbo. 25 wins and 4 track championships together, and it's possible the 8 machine could just be done altogether. Jeremy also reporting today on his 90 at 9 that the Trone 39 is open again, as Cody Hartlaub and that team also recently separated. That car has just been a revolving door for drivers over the past several seasons. No word on who could replace Rahmer or Hartlaub, but there are a handful of Pennsylvania-linked free agents, including Devin Borden and Dylan Cisney. Other drivers looking for seats right now include Cal Thomas and Hunter Schoenberg, Parker Price-Miller, Corey Eliason, Chase Randall, and Zeb Wise. That's your daily show for today. Hope you enjoyed Charter Talk. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday out there. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.